I'd like to start with the US dollar. It's pushed up, so this has been our original count here where we've had an A and a B wave here, and then looking up for a C wave here with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I know there's problems with this particular count as wave 4 overlaps wave 1 here. The other problem with this is, well, it's not a problem, is that this wave 3 here is actually shorter than wave 1 here. So that means, that's okay, but that means that wave 5 here needs to be shorter than wave 3 here. So that is the case at the moment. And when we have a look at this little move in here, we see that it's, well, you can, maybe you can't see it all, but we can see that strong move in the middle here, right? So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 going up here. Now, that may or may not be the end of it. We could put wave 1 here, of course, and put wave 2 back here and that sort of thing here. But at the same time, you know, we're either going to see this pullback or we're going to see it come down further at that point. So this, while this is pushing up here in 5 waves, we're seeing, well, the stock market push down at that point. Okay, so that's what we're looking at the moment. So let's just see if this is going to sort of terminate here. There is a good case for that. I haven't looked at the euro, but I did check the Aussie dollar, which is quite interesting because while the US dollar's been pushing up, you know, we've been counting 5 waves up here, and while the US dollar's been pushing up, we've seen the Aussie push down. So, and we'd been looking for, you know, wave 3 and 4 here. So this has fallen out of bed here, but it's also finishing off its ABC pattern here as well into its 50. The other important point here is it's in its 50-60% retracement level area here. So yeah, it just sort of strengthens a possibility that the US dollar could terminate at this point. Now it's going to pull back anyway, and that when it pulls back it's going to give some reprieve to the indices that have been pushing down and the stocks that have been pushing down. Okay, so I just thought that I would take a look at that first. So this is the NASDAQ here. I'm sorry I don't have it all labelled, but from the low here we were counting up as 5 waves, and then we're looking for a move back into the box here. We'll talk about this more when we get to the video for this. Now the only real weakness that I see in the markets is in the banking sector. So the only one that sort of misbehaved from my counts are BAC. So the banks are, it's not that the Feds have changed their story, is it? You know, when he's spoken, they'll also be speaking, well, it's Wednesday today in Australia at the moment, nearly 6 a.m. in the morning, so they'll Jeremy will also be speaking again in the next session as well. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think the only way they're going to get inflation under control really is by using monetary and fiscal, not just one of them. They both have to be used together. And when you go back in history and have a look at when there's been hyperinflation around the world and where they have used fiscal and monetary at the same time, they solved the problem pretty quick without a crash. That was the other interesting point that came out of that historical viewpoint. But getting, you know, kids in the candy store to stop buying candy is spending the money is another thing, isn't it? So anyway, basically we've got further to come down. This pattern here is corrective. It's just taking out this low here now, so that's got to come down further. The S&P is coming into its box, so we'll just see how that goes. I'm not sure if that box is right there actually. Looks like it moved a little bit. Yeah, it had moved a bit, but not a biggie. So no need to buy under the level here. We can buy above the level as a setup. So like I said, I don't particularly like buying on the lows because it's a bit tricky to put your stop somewhere unless you've really got a good grip on the wave count. So what we want to see is we want to see a little classic trading levels pattern come back above the 4,000 here, and we'll talk more about this, of course, in the in that particular video. But that will be the setup at that point for the first trade to the upside at that point. Okay, because if it's going to fail and we get it wrong, this is going to continue down in one way or another. You know, it's not going to find support. So we need this pattern here, which is this pattern. And this would be the same for stocks, you know. So at any price point, depending on what the closest largest number is, once you got the first high, but you just wait for the first high above the level, and then it should come back and test the demand, and then you come down from that high, and that high. And the good thing about this is because when that gets breached here, you can put your stop, maybe not that close, but put it, you know, depending on what the situation is, of course, but put it under the last low, because if it market takes out a high, then it tends to be proving to you that it's strong. But when they do take out highs as such, they like to sort of rest and fold back and check as well. So don't put your stops too close. So we're waiting to see if we get that situation, and then we'll talk about this more building in over through group 1 over here for this. It looks a bit scary at the moment in terms of will it turn back up? Well, if it does, then we're going to be on it. It'll be that simple. So Apple. So with Apple here, we've got 5 waves up here of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's good. And the situation is that it hasn't taken out the top there. So we can't go over here and label it wave 1 over here, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? It's an isolated impulse wave. So it should, you know, once it has its correction here, we'll look at that and we can see the stochastic sort of stretching out a bit. So then we should see that move to the upside come into play. Yeah, let's just go in and look at these a bit closer. So from the 5K tick chart to the 1K tick chart. Yesterday we were calling the highs in for pretty much everything, except a couple of them, I think. Yeah, as I mentioned yesterday, there's 2 types of situations. We've got a situation where markets have come off their low and they've given 5 waves up. There's other situations, come off its low here. There's other situations where markets have already had a push up and a pull back, and then this move here has been like a 3rd wave here. Now it could be a 3rd wave in some cases, and in other cases it could be up for 1, back for 2, up for 1, back for 2, that type of thing as well. But they're the 2 things. Now in this basket here, there's Square, there's Meta, there's Enphase. I think there was another one as well. And there's a few things that are other ones that are a little bit different, like Netflix is still finishing its move down. NVIDIA is, you know, chomping at the bit to go up and all those sorts of things, so a bit different. But the main consensus is this particular pattern here. So we're looking up as wave 1 here in most markets. And yesterday we just started to see the turn, so we're getting what we expected. The Feds, when they speak, they can rock the boat a little bit and make it a bit more scary. But there was nothing really said that they haven't said before. So we should see this recover at some point here. Now we need to talk about this particular setup here a little bit more here. There's probably a couple of different ways to count these down, generally speaking. When you're looking at the markets and a market does move down, different stocks will do it in different ways. So there's normally a couple of different ways to view things. So yeah, I probably need to, doesn't quite ring true, but yeah, I was putting this in here as the A wave. I can see this is from that point, drop down from that point. So this is 5 waves here. So we could look at this 1, 2, 3, an A, B, C here. We could look at this as an A and a B and a C here. We could put the B wave over here. We could put this here as wave 1 and look back for wave 2 here. there's a few things like that, you know. So I just want to talk about this a little bit. So I think in the next session, after the next speech, poor Jeremy's got to deliver. It's a tough thing to do what he's doing, I'd imagine. And yeah, I think one of the main things here is that it's good to have, like I said, I don't particularly like buying on the lows. I like to have some sort of evidence, you know. So there's a little 5 waves here, for example. It's not that, you know, we know, you know, but if that got triggered, then would be long. I'd go long at this point because it's sitting on top of group 1 of 50. So 50 is 150 is a medium level, and then 1, 2, 3 is minor group 1. And if we got support on that, getting support there with a classic trading levels pattern and waiting for that first high, and they don't always come in. You see how this had the first high here. That's why we wait for it, because it can fade and then go down. It keeps you safe at that point. But if it's breached, then you can go long on it. So I'm thinking that this is a thin green line, so it's a part trade, and if we get support on 153, that's the top of minor group 1, then what it's doing is it's separating itself from being pulled here, because at the moment it couldn't find support there, could it? I mean, it's hindsight, but and that gives you 2020, but we know the process, so we go through the motions of this high and then down to this high and so on. But if it comes back around here now, because what I'm talking about here is that the countdown here could be counted in different ways. We could put wave B here, we could put wave 1 over here, we could put wave 2 here, there's a few different ways to look at it, but we know that it's likely to come down a little bit further. So based on that, some markets will go down further than others, some won't go down, all of those sort of things. But group 1 as a tested support with the first high above the level is what we're looking for the first part trade. And then you can put in a full trade at 155, and then we've got this up here to go long at that point. But that also means too that we want to get support in the next level, which is 15650, so we can build in over this side here as well for that. Because we'll be in, if this is right, we'll be wave 1 here, wave 2 here, and then we'll see wave 3 way up here somewhere, you know. Wave 3 will be longer than this wave 1 here. So when we look back later in hindsight, we'll say, well, shit, we did all the right things. We built in at the right places. We, managed our, we managed to get in at the beginning of the trend, and all of that stuff. And look, it may not, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but if we do all the right things all the time at the right time, then it'll pay off. You'll get the edge at the end of the day. So we just want to manage our risk. Now, you can buy in the box or at the 150 here, it's not a problem. But if you normally buy, say, 10 shares, then just buy 2 shares there. Something that's not going to bother you too much, you know what I mean? So I just talk in low numbers because it's easier, and a lot of folks open accounts with $1,000 or $500 and all these sorts of things. But really, you need an account. If you're going to trade, you really need an account of probably 30 grand at least. So you can anything under 50 grand, you want to be risking less than 1%, and the idea is to get that 1% to 0.5% as quick as possible, and then to break even. And that job alone helps a lot. Anything over, say, 50 grand up to 100 grand, then you can start risking like 0.5%. If you risk 2% and you haven't got all the other numbers humming along, well, you're going to get crushed at that point. And if you're undercapitalized, then you'll tend to overtrade and you won't last long. So really, any small account that you start with is just education. And I think it's good if you blow up a few accounts, as long as it's small and doesn't affect you and the family and things. And but yeah, as long as you know where you're at with that, because fear is, this is a thing of fear and greed, isn't it? And if you've got fear by putting your stops too close because you've got too much money in, and those sort of things, you're just going to you're going to get your ass kicked. Anyway, this may or may not be landed here, but we're going to buy new highs. If it comes down, you can buy a small amount, and tomorrow we'll look at. So hopefully, today's Wednesday. We're coming into, because we call Wednesday and Thursday swing days in the market, and we've got ADP figures coming out tonight too. So they're always a good lead into the non-farms. So. There's a fair bit sort of going on, so it's going to be a little bit spiky, so less is more with all of this. Enough waffling here, but what I've explained here about purchasing a very small amount in the green boxes at big numbers is fine, but keep it small. In a nutshell, we're looking for a move up. Now, it could get a bit spiky with the ADP figures tonight and Jeremy speaking again and all those sort of things, so just reduce your position size. Once we see the market, or if we see the market, moving up here somewhere, well, then you can buy more. Do you know what I mean? Because you know where you are at that point, that's all. So, what do we got here? Amazon. Now, there's a couple of different ways to sort of view this, I guess, but we'll probably come down a bit further on this. I thought I had a box in this one, but maybe not. Well, that's the 56. It shouldn't come down much lower than that, I reckon. So we should be just sort of clipping out that little area here. This move here so far is 3 waves, but we also want to buy above here. Okay, so that's at 95. So you wait. You look for the classic trading levels pattern. So you look for just keeping it very simple these days, just the first high above the level. But you know the routine. You could get something like this on the level, just squared off here. So if you start from the top and then come down to the second high, that can trigger you in, and that's all good. Or otherwise, you'll get this particular pattern. This is the most common pattern where it reacts from the level, and then we'll give you that reaction, the arrival, the reaction, the first high above the level, and then the rest of it. The other one that's a little bit you don't see much of is this one here. I call it the overshoot, where it doesn't stop at the level. And then I always know that unless I'm in some big parabolic third of a third of a third or something like that, if it's just normal, then if it doesn't stop at the level, then it will move. It'll end up. You'll see it tiring up here, and then it'll fall. It'll drop at that point. And normally this line, whatever that big price point is there, and it could be a small number, just the biggest in that area, will become the balance line for the pattern here, and the distance above it goes is roughly will be the distance it goes below as well. Sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's way off, but it just gives you a bit of an idea, thinking, well, that's gone up $1, so that should drop around $1. Then you check your numbers over here, and then you check your pattern inside of that, and then you check your volume, and do all your other fancy work and footwork, and off you go. But this becomes the balance line at this point. Okay, so nothing to do here in one way or another. I'd imagine we're going to be coming down further, and tomorrow we'll see where we are here. See if we've got some impulse wave up here, we may be able to look at buying the ABC back here and then getting in a little bit earlier or something like that. We've got 5 waves up off the low. Everything's pretty cool, so we should be going up. We should be landing around here somewhere. It's not the best pattern, but we should be landing around where we are at the moment, and we're on top of group 1 here, 3 here. So the strongest numbers are 1, 5, 8, and then 3. So we can see that it's doing its job. And they normally bounce back to 4 or 5. They normally stay within that range, of that Fibbo range there, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. So everything's going according to plan. NVIDIA here. So with NVIDIA here, we've got we were talking about wave one up here yesterday. We're talking about most of the markets taking profit over here, trying to buy back in at the lows over here for this. It's possible I could call this wave one over here too, by the way, but I'd be forcing a little tiny wave one at the top there. But anyway, talked about going long here, so we're dropping it down to the second high now. You could probably pick up a little bit in here. So yeah, so let's just shapen this up here. Let's just put that on there because that's where it's at the moment, and that's just retesting that, and then it'll drop into here. So when it comes down here, like I said, you can pick up something in here if you can count. This will be 1 and 2 in here. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll be third, fourth wave in here and a fifth wave. If you can count 5 in here, you can buy on the fifth of the fifth of the fifth in here. But otherwise, look for the first pop to the upside, and then look for a little ABC pattern, or just go long at that point. And like I say, you just need to keep it really small, because you know, if it all goes south, if it all goes, you know, sour, then, you know, you haven't because, you know, if for example, if I bought here, then I would get out. I would look for the closest largest number, and I would look for that as resistance here. So when this comes down here, I would wait for the first low below the level, and that's where I'd put my stop at that point. Because if that was breached, then I know that that's been rejected at that point, you know. And if that's rejected, well, the next bus stops down here. You know, I mean, you'll get support at the 20, between 20 and 30. There's 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8, and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? So, but that's so that small bit you got there. That's how I would do it. But many roads to Rome, and it's best to find your own way. But it's always good to get little tips and tricks from others, even if some are useful and some are not. So, always be thankful for folks sharing, and hopefully you'll share, and the world will continue to spin. So Meta's one of these ones that already had wave 1 and 2 in here. So we were looking at these being wave 4 here. This is the 38.2% here. Now, it's possible that this could be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, but it's a nice third wave, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And compared to this, everything's pretty good about it. The size of it and so on. This is all a bit messy here, so if you don't know what it is, it's going to be a wave 4. You don't have to have all the answers for that. It could be that we put wave 3 over here. I need to just really pull all this apart here, and I haven't done that. We could put wave 3 here. We could put it over here. It doesn't really matter. We know we got a wave 4 here, and all we need to do is buy new highs. Now, the problem with this is that this will be the length of wave 1 here. So that's going to be roughly the length of this here. Now, because we've got this 200 here, it's likely to be sucked up to the 200. That would be the norm at this point. You don't normally see it. You can see it. If it's going to fail, it normally fail at 98. But yeah. So in some way or another, any long trades that you put in here, you can keep these ones, but any long trades you put in here, they got to come out somewhere up here, because they will turn into a loss a little bit later on. So let's just assume that we get something right for once. We get this 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then we get wave 5 up here somewhere, or take it up to there. Then we're likely to get some sort of ABC pattern to come in here to the 50-60% coming down here, and then look, it may not pull all the way down back to the 180, but it could, you know. So you don't want these turning into a loss, you know, and perhaps some of this, you know. It's kind of nice to leave some skin in the game, but just don't have it at risk, because when we're thinking of this number here, in the bigger picture, I won't go to the bigger picture, but what we want to do here, if you think about it, is that really all we want here is we want a little trade here and some little trade in here, and then we want to build, because the market's going to vibrate here, and it can vibrate really from top of group 1 back down to 165. That's its swing range. Now it looks big here, but if essentially we want to be building, if we got the count right, we want to, once this becomes the support here, this will be the arrival, this will be the reaction, this will be the first high above the level. It'll be something like this, and then there'll be some sort of ABC pattern here, and then we'll go up again. So it's really over here that we're talking about moving in again over here. So we're managing our exposure. And if you just stay in a market, then you'll make a certain amount of money. But if you work the trend a little bit, you can increase that by, you can quite easily double it, or at least add another 60% to it, But anyway, this particular point here is that the market will, those trades that you've got in here, will come back and put you in the red at that point. So must take money off the table at that point, but leaving a little bit in the game. I'll just put this other one back in here. I didn't mean to take it. So yeah, so in a nutshell, all we really want is just to really leave this one here, because we're going to add to that, because when we do come up here, we're going to pull back. We probably won't pull back very much, but if we can get another one of these little ones over here somewhere, because this could be 25%, it could be 33%, it could be 50%, whatever you decide to do, but then we've got like half a trade or one whole trade below this number, and then we can build some above it, So yeah, I mean, I personally, I think it's fine to have like 20 positions in there as such, because really we're just trying to manage the exposure on the initial risk and then the traveling risk as well in the journey of all of this. So, but yeah, anyway, just sort of thinking outside the box a little bit. But yeah, the good news is that this, I mean, what could go wrong here? Well, if we had to look at this going wrong, then all of this would be the A wave here, all of this would be the B wave here, and then would have come down for a C wave here. And then this would be wave 2 over here. Is that possible? Sure. And let's see why not. But it doesn't line up with what's going on with Apple, because Apple's got that 5 waves up, and we're at the 61.8% up here anyway, But just so, we've done all the right things. We've had a little 2 positions in here. We've taken money off the table here. If it's going to be a 3 and 4 here, because it doesn't look as an impulse wave, it could be down for 1, back for 2, down for 1, back for 2, down for 1, back for 2, and keep on dropping, But if we buy new highs, then it's going to confirm that it is a wave 4, and we'll be going closer up towards the 200 at that point. So we're kind of accommodating everything at the same time, and yeah, we've got a little bit of exposure, but yeah, anyway, I think that we're doing, doing all the right things at the right time. Sorry to waffle on so much, but just trying to justify myself. Okay, so Netflix, yeah, we've been looking at it coming down further. We were going to go along here, and now I'm bringing it down over to here for this, and maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe this is maybe I need to bring this wave 4 over here and this wave 4 over here and all those sort of things yet. I don't know. I haven't had time to investigate that. We could come down further. The situation at the moment is that yeah, I don't know. It looks a little bit corrective in here, because it looks like it's in 3 waves, so we should drop down. You could buy a very small amount, on the 300, 303 to 298 or something, in that space, but a very small amount, with the view of adding a very small amount on 10, 20, and 30 as we go to the upside. So we'll just see how this lands tomorrow. But yeah, let's just wait out. We've just been waiting for all of this. Yeah, I mean, there is a bearish count for all of this too in the bigger picture, but I won't go there today on that. Let's just get through this current thing. I don't want to scare folks unnecessarily. So this situation here as well is a little bit like Meta, in that we have a position here. We've taken some money off the table here maybe. The position here is that we already have one up and two here, and then the third wave and the fourth wave probably in place. By the looks of it, it doesn't look very impulsive coming down here. Wave 4 could get uglier, so it could come back down here a little bit further. The other situation here is, like we said with Meta stock, is that not Meta stock, Meta platforms, as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. So in this case, I don't particularly want to buy here because the third wave was nice, but it wasn't that long either. So if we, if the thing is here, if we get 5 waves up here, it might be part of this here as an A wave here, a B wave here, and a C wave coming into play here for this, you know, for a bigger B wave, and then we could come down from that point. So really the safe trade is over here. Once we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then an ABC pattern, then we can take the B wave out at that point and then go long from that point. And this will be on the top of group 1 as well. So in one way or another, I would expect that we'll have a classic trading levels pattern across, you know, the third strongest or fourth strongest number here, the arrival, the reaction, the first high above the level, the ABC correction. And if we're going to get triggered, we'll get triggered over here, and that will be good, and we can get up to there at that point. But that will give us wave 1 at that point. If that was going to be the case, that would be wave 1 here, then wave 2, and then we'll go up for wave 3 at that point, you know, so that it looks a bit, we're building on the fractals in that direction. Now, the other side of this, the dark side, is that we could look at this, I'll just use these here, it's the wrong labeling, the wrong degree of structure, as an A and a B and a C wave here, and that's it. We've got down for 1 here, back for 2 here, and hitting supply, and then we're coming down again from that point. That's a possibility, but the risk that we've taken on here in going long here, we had it under here, then we've halved the risk, and now we've taken some money off here, so we should be pretty close to breaking even if we got stopped out at this point. We could even just get that in here a little bit closer now. So we should be pretty safe at this point, you know. It's never perfect, but yeah, that's where we are, really. So we're at breaking even or made a little bit of money, and if we get out up here or take a big chunk off, because after 5 waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we'll get some type of correction here. How deep it pulls back, I don't know. It might be really shallow, just come back to the wave 4 here, and we didn't need to get out, but working it, you know, within its space is what we need to do. If we keep doing the right thing, even though it doesn't always pay off, so there's a couple of things, there's a couple of ways to look at all of that. But anyway, that's where we are, and I'll try to move along a little bit quicker. Tesla, we're not going to do anything with Tesla at the moment. We looked at this being wave 1 up here yesterday, and an ABC back for wave 2 here. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know now, because it came back pretty low, didn't take it out. Do I need to look at this as wave 1 and 2 and then 3, 4, 5 moving down a bit further at this point? You know, that's the thing here at this moment. But you know, our normal thing is to go long on the level here. So we're just going to wait for that. You know, I'm not seeing an impulse wave up here. I mean, I can look at it as an impulse wave, but it's not showing me the love at this. I probably could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's not quite right at this point. So we don't need to do anything here just yet. So we're just going to wait for things to settle. Maybe we'd be looking at these long trades on the Friday, you know, once all the dust settles. But we'll see what the ADP figures are tonight as well. So alphabet here. It's still a long way from where we need it to be here, so I wasn't quite sure where to put the ABCs for this. And normally with wave 2s as well, if you don't mind pointing out, is that, I know it's not always the case, but the wave A should be 5 waves like this, and then the wave B should be 3 waves, and then 5 waves here. Now, I know that's sort of, with these US stocks, it never really gives you a nice sort of 5, 3, 5 structure. It's a zigzag pattern for wave 2 here, but I can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here for 1 and 2 and 3. Then I've got wave 4 overlapping wave 1 here, so that's a problem, and I don't particularly want to go, I could look at it as the A wave here, the B wave here. I mean, I can see that it needs to come down further as 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, and it'll probably find support here. But I don't know if that's the right count, because normally I just look for this, not so much for WXYs and all of those sorts of things, especially within wave 2, But I know that they can get messy, so we'll just see. We don't need to do any. All we need to do is wait for the first high above the level. If it's going to hit this, that's why I left these trend lines in here, but they might need to be tweaked a little bit. But the thing is that we don't have a buy signal at this point, and I don't want to buy on the lows. I want to see some sort of, we may get some impulse wave to here, and then an ABC back, and then we can go long at that point. We can get in before this number and then above this number and cruise in up here. But we're not there yet with it, And the other thing for this too is that we could look at it, this coming in as this 38.2% here. I'll just going to leave that there because I just want to see if it bounces off there, because I might need to adjust my count on that. That's really just for me not to worry about it, but we're not ready yet. Do you know what I mean? Yesterday we were looking for the turn, and today we're deep in the shit, and now we've got to get out, and we've got to kind of look for the setups, and is it this, is it that at this particular point? So we're in that sort of guessing game at the moment, so we need to move past that. This is pretty straightforward here for Microsoft in terms we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and then a B wave here. I could put the B wave here too, but we'll see how that goes. But we can go long above that B wave now. That's one thing. Okay. How far it comes down, it's the end of the session. It doesn't really, all of this here, like it was singing a song along this little journey here and doing, moving along quite swiftly, but now it doesn't want to move it's moving not only moving sideways, it's just, you can see the intensity of the patterns in here. So I mean, you can get a better position than taking out the B wave here. You may be able to see that it comes down, and we go up here, and we get an ABC pattern here, and then we can, you could go long at that point, all those sort of things. So when I put this here, it doesn't mean that you take out that top. You need to always have a look at the closest largest number, in this case 55, and then work it from that point, and then understand where group after 5 is 8, and then with 8 you've got group 2 here, so that'll bring it down to 25650 in here. So that 5650 is going to be an important number here as well, and you'll see that shine over here as well. So you could add at that particular point. So there's a lot of work to there's always room for improvement and refinement. So Berkshire Hathaway here, this is another one of these stocks like that's already had the wave 1 business here. So looking at it, the 38.2% is here. So the 310, when you find the retracement level, it's always good to have a look at what number that you're looking at. So definitely the 10 here. Is it possible to look at this as 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 here? Yeah, it's possible. This is wave 1 up here. So as a bear market, is it possible to look at this as a whole impulse wave down here? to make a bear market? Yeah, I don't think so. So as I mentioned, taking out this top here creates this here as an A and a B and a C wave here. You know, I don't think you can do anything weird like do a little 1 and 2 in here and a 3 here and have a massive wave 4 here and then down for wave 5. That doesn't make much sense. You could have this here as an A wave here, a B wave over here, and then a deeper C wave over here. That could play out. That's a possibility. And then put wave 2 over here. That's doable at that point. But it's still what it does though, because this is in 3 waves here, it still makes this over here corrective at that point. So we're in a pretty good position in looking at it being bullish. Now, you know, there's some weaker markets around that can justify being, you know, bearish, such as the banks and the Dow Jones and a few of those sorts of things. But yeah, there seems to be more of a case for these other ones. Okay, so we've got here block, and yeah, we could also look at this being a B wave to the upside, an A and a B and a C wave up here. We're waiting for the first high above the level, so we've got that in there now. We could bring that green line down to, you know, the second part of this here. We can see that this here is corrective, so we could put it onto this one. Because I can see that this is corrective, and you should be able to see that in 3 waves as well, that means that it's corrective. That means we'll take the low out here, so that means we'll go down here at minimum. And then, even though we've got this high here, once it gets down here, you still need to not so much worry about that, but there'll be the arrival, the reaction, the first high above the level again. So the arrival was above the level anyway, but the arrival, the reaction, and the first high above the level, that's what you're waiting for. So we'll have to go through that again over here, you know, and then you could refine it down onto the second high here, if that was going to be the case. You know, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So it will be over here at that point. So that will be the long trade set up at that point. So it's a long way at this stage. I'm just going to leave it back up here for the time being. But if that drops here and then takes that top out here clearly, then you need to find yourself, you know, a way in at that point. Now, because this is in 3 waves to the upside, I mean, the whole thing with this too, from the top here, it's difficult to count this one down as 5 waves as well, you know. I mean, this is a bit tricky in here, but I've pulled that apart. There's 5 waves to there. So we definitely got some A and B and C wave here, or I could go 1, 2, and maybe 3, 4, 5, or something like that. Doesn't look like the case. But either way, whichever way you want to, you know, ice this cake, it's still a cake, you know, and still a correction. And yeah, so we don't know, we don't have 5 waves here yet. We had 5 waves here, so we figured we'll get another 5. But if we had 5 waves here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we know that we'll get a correction, and then we're going to get another 5 at that point, you know, of the same degree, same fractal size. But we're not there yet, you know, so we're just sort of, you know, poking around in the dark. There's a little bit of light there, but that's where we are at the moment. And yeah, so the banking one, this is where I've made a mistake here, and it's caught me out because I had wave 2 here. I knew in the back of my mind, in my heart of hearts, that this is like looking more like 5 waves down rather than 3 waves down. So, and I should have addressed my intuition for myself on that, so that was my failure. So yeah, I'm unsure about all this, but if the other markets have got a little bit to come down and that's it, well then I'll just track these 5 waves here, and we'll see what occurs at that particular point. Okay, it still can be 5 waves here for the A, the B, and the C wave here, and finish at that point. But as I mentioned before, we've got a bearish count for this. That there's, you know, it can be viewed as down for 1 here and ABC back for wave 2. The reason I haven't done that is, and I've looked at it this way, is because I felt that stocks like Apple and NVIDIA and Tesla, they're all showing me a bullish side of the markets. Now, these bearish ones can go to the extreme and get you in at the last minute, and then they'll turn up and follow the other ones up, you know. So we also need to figure out with the US dollar as well, if we actually have a top in there at that point, or where that's going to go. So we're just still working through things, but in summing things up is that, in a bit of a nutshell, we are looking for this current move down in stocks to find its floor, which we should see in the next session. It will be interesting to see what the ADP figures are, and then start to make a move up from that point. And if that is the case, we'll be looking for setups. Now, we may not, depending on what Jeremy says that's any different from today, if there's any sort of different, we'll just see how that goes. We'll get past the ADP figures and this, and perhaps we can be looking for long trades on the Friday and following through on the Monday at that point. We'll see how that plays out. Alrighty, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.